Welcome to the All About Digital Marketing podcast. The show all about
digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Brought to you by Social Inc., a digital marketing agency specializing in social media and content marketing for brave brands and forward-thinking SMEs. I'm your host, Chris Bruno, and as always, we're here to bring you the most actionable tips, tricks, tools, and insights to help you achieve more when it comes to your digital marketing. Subscribe to the show and be sure to share with a friend if you found something useful or interesting. You can find all the show notes and more information on www.allaboutdigitalmarketing.co.uk. Gary Lewis, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the invite. Much appreciated.
Well, we've met a couple of times now. We've spoken previously in the past as well, but I'm glad to have you here and so that we can talk a little bit about freelancers. But before we get into that, can you give a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and what you do?
I'm Gary Lewis. You may know me as Gary Does Copy on Twitter. I use that on LinkedIn as well. I'm a freelance copywriter. If I have to go down the niche route, I'd have to say B2B in tech. Although, whether you agree with it or not, I am a generalist. I think I'm a creative copywriter as well. But in terms of getting bookings and stuff, recruiters want to know what you've been doing recently, and it always kind of slots into a nice category.
I like the need to niche down. It seems to be a very big focus for a lot of people these days.
It is. I've kind of made my peace with it because it's my bread and butter. But I think that if you've got the skill set, i.e. writing and some knowledge of marketing or advertising or a variety of sectors, and the experience reflects that, then other people should be open to it as well. But, everyone's got to do their job. And if it makes it easier to put you in a box, then so be it. But I don't think it's necessarily damaging my prospects. So emotionally, I am a generalist copywriter, and I enjoy creating visuals to go with copy, creating spec ads by 1 minute briefs. But yeah, as I say, my niche is probably in tech, which I've grown to love.
I think 1 minute briefs is now becoming the platform that gets the most shout outs on this podcast ever.
You can't help but not.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think it's for a good reason as well. It's a great community. It's how we met as well. And I think every day I'm blown away by a creative bunch of people just doing incredible things. And it's just, it is fantastic in that sense. So if you haven't checked that out yet, feel free. It's on Twitter. Just simply look for 1 minute briefs. And you'll probably find Gary and ourselves here at Social Inc. All jumping in with whatever that day's brief would be.
Yeah, it's given me a lot. It's given me a lot back, being part of the community. I won't turn this into an ad 1 minute briefs because it's growing on its own legs anyway. But like you say, we met. I've had referrals for work as well through some of the quote unquote onboards. So it goes beyond the kind of creative platform, and it's become a network of sorts, actually, for kind of recognizing people's strengths and bringing people on board. It's been quite a boon to me.
Well, to be fair, I mean, until Nick sponsors it officially, the podcast that is, we're going to stop talking about OMB. But at the same time, we are massive fans, and again, we absolutely love the community. So we're going to carry on supporting it whichever ways we can as well. And again, for any freelancers listening to this, definitely check it out. Even if you're more focused on long format writing or anything else, it's a great creative exercise for you to do every day. It'll help build your portfolio. And again, just like Gary said, it's a huge network. It really is becoming like a family. So it's well worth checking out. Okay, that's enough about OMB and Nick. I'll send you an invoice if you are listening. But more importantly, Gary, talk to us a little bit about yourself. So as a freelancer, how do you market yourself? What are the things that you're doing most at the moment?
I think most is maybe an overambitious term. Getting the day work is is hard enough. I'm active on LinkedIn. I don't post up regularly, so I'm kind of stealthy in that way, but I know I could be doing more. So what I've done is built a network on LinkedIn of recruiters, other copywriters, and agencies as well. I also dip into Twitter, but that's definitely more conversational. I've recently joined the Kingston Chamber of Commerce, and I've got a kind of action plan going forward as to how I'm going to ingratiate myself in the wider business community. But in terms of actual marketing outputs, it is tough doing it for yourself, especially if you're creative, I think, because you're probably just focused on whatever the job at hand is, especially if you're a freelancer. So I know I could be doing more, and I do have ideas, but it's finding the time to sit down and do it. But I basically try and maintain a fairly vocal presence on social channels.
It's good. It's quite funny actually, and I'm not sure why it happens, or why we've seen more of it through the freelance point of view. But I actually think agencies are quite guilty of this as well. We get caught up in the day-to-day of the client work, and we give our all. We give absolutely everything we have. So we'll be creative, we'll be fun, we'll be engaging, we'll start conversations, we'll get involved in other conversations. And then when it comes to sort of marketing ourselves, and it's something that we reviewed massively early this year, and really sort of changed the way that we were doing. But freelancers and agencies, just, I feel like we could all be doing more to have more conversations.
Definitely agree. I'd agree with the agency aspect as well. I've had conversations with some recruiters who may feel kind of restricted in a role and what they can do. I think LinkedIn is becoming more of a social network in terms of just more than just connecting businesses, etc. I think individuals on there are definitely putting their best life forward, as it were. So even people like recruiters are putting out their own voice and content for you to engage with, even if it's just to kind of get you hooked and through the door. So it's just about adding a bit of personality. But I do have a plan in my head. It's just literally executing it. You know, it's tying it all together. And it's also having to find the time and probably factoring in costs to defer to finding the right agency or the right supporting kind of partner in those endeavors, because we can't do it all ourselves, Chris.
Well, this is true, and it does become a full-time job as well, which can be a very, very big problem. Okay, so talking about the social medias and the different networks and stuff like that, what's your favorite network and why?
I really like LinkedIn. It's a strange one that I've seen it kind of, my career has grown in parallel with the way LinkedIn has grown. So I think it was quite dry and corporate about 6 years ago when I started copywriting. And as I said, there's definitely more personality on there. There's definitely more kind of conversational. It's still quite celebratory as well on an individual level as well, or agencies or businesses or campaigns. I think it's quite a nice route to getting where you want to be. And there's one kind of branch that I look out for, which is having a saved search on, say, freelance copywriter. And it's sometimes fastest fingers first. But if you are joining those conversations more and making the right connections, then you'll get to the top of the pile quicker, even if there are 28 people behind you saying me, and putting their hands up for the same role. So I think it's a really good way of starting conversations, nurturing them, and just basically going from cold to warm to hot eventually. And there's a lot of great content on there as well.
I think the interesting thing that you added there was the eventually, which so many people have not quite got the hang of yet. Yeah. And especially I find this on LinkedIn. So I was talking with, on the podcast a couple of episodes ago with Xenia from the CEO of Planable. And she was talking about it as well. And the same with us. Both of us had an absolute pet hate for people who connect with us on LinkedIn. And then literally within minutes, we get the pitch. And even worse than that are the people that send a pitch in the connection request, which just doesn't work. We want to think, or we want to feel like we know people. And that's why I think that the eventually that you added there You take people from being a cold lead and you nurture that into becoming a warm lead, and then they become a hot lead. Or even better, if you're having these interesting conversations and you're constantly showing up, those touch points, I think, are far more important for either a freelancer or a business owner to have, so that the day that they do think, I need someone to help me with copy, they don't then think, who do I know? Who don't I know? Or who should I put this to, or anything else? They automatically go, yeah, Gary does copy. In fact, that's exactly why the name is so good. But that kind of building that relationship is something that so many people have just completely forgotten about. They think you can connect with either a cold email where you're pitching me something, or a cold message on LinkedIn, and that I'm going to go, thank you so much for messaging me. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what I would have done today in terms of link building, cryptocurrency investing, or whatever other crap it is that you're selling me today.
Exactly. I mean, I've had some random connects as well. It's the kind of message equivalent of when you get one of those robo calls for accident claim lines. They're so clever now and finesse, that you say hello and then it starts its spiel. Well, you connect with someone and then there may be like a paragraph of a human who's written you a message, and then they just launch into, like you say, a pitch, whether it's a job role that has absolutely nothing to do with you. If they look at your profile, they know you're not going to be a fit, or just spamming you for something like, come to this event. Again, it doesn't really doesn't fit on your radar. But yeah, I get it. But I suppose it's just like a kind of digital version of the sales world, or the traditional old sales model. Just all those kind of cold leads. But you're right. With the tools are there and there's enough advice out there as well. God, there's 1,000 top 5 lists on how to win at LinkedIn. That it's really quite obvious, and shame on anyone who isn't doing it properly.
Yeah, so the old traditional route, and I can always remember this, it stuck with me so much back in these days, but it was about 15, 16 years ago. I went for a job with Honda here in the UK to be involved in the B2B sales department, leasing for cars, vehicles, commercial, whatever. And the guy who was interviewing me said to me, he goes, what's your biggest tool, or what's the best tool in your toolkit when it comes to this job? And, I'm sort of on the spot, fairly young back then, 15 years ago. And basically kind of sat there thinking to myself, right, what's my best tool? This is a proper trick interview question. So I ended up going down the route of, my ability to build relationships with people and start talking and have conversations, to nurture that. And exactly what we've always talked about, the principle of you go from a cold lead to a warm to a hot lead. And he turned around and said to me, no, that's not the best tool in your toolkit. The best tool in your toolkit is the yellow pages. And literally my face, my heart, everything dropped. I didn't end up taking that job. I was offered it, which was great, but I didn't end up taking that job. And about a year and a half later, 2 years later, I think I actually started the agency, or whenever it was, 11 years ago. And literally I remember that conversation and just feeling so disheartened that is honestly what a sales director would feel would be the best way of doing this, is picking up the yellow pages and just calling people out of the blue to try and flog them something.
Well, I mean, going back to what I was saying about how I'm arguing myself, or rather what I'm about to do, which is put some content out and kind of connect with the right people through my local chamber of commerce. They've got a directory. I could have taken that yellow pages approach, or I could, but I actually spoke to the director, had a good chat with him, and he said, take the time to create something that shows the brand exactly what you do in a creative way. So when you do have that conversation, you're not just putting it straight up front, and you can let them know, and you can be selective about how and when you talk to people. So it's about identifying your audience as well, rather than a kind of scattergun approach.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with that. And the thing is, so we all talk about it on social media a lot, but adding value, giving value to your audience, having a reason why somebody should read, listen, whatever it might be. And it's a message that gets repeated 100 times a day by all sorts of people all over. But it's something that we often forget when it comes to just basic social conduct. I did a talk for WeWork Labs recently for a few startups, and basically we were having the conversation of putting the social back into social media. And one of the examples is, you want to start dating someone. You don't start by saying to them, let's get married and buy a house and have a couple of kids and get a dog named Spot. You start by actually saying, hi, like, tell me a little bit about you. What do you do? What do you like to do? Or you are, but what are you sort of doing? You build up this relationship, and the same thing is true whether it be online or offline. And it's something that really has been lost a little bit by both, I wouldn't just say freelancers, but small businesses, even some big businesses, where they forget that actually social media gives us this huge platform, a huge amount of people to potentially connect with, and the ability to have a conversation with all these people. And it's something that's really, really getting lost, I'd say, with people pushing out offers, people trying to spam your LinkedIn inbox by saying, yeah, you can buy this now today, or whatever it might be. And I think that's a shame. I think the conversation, and again, getting to know your audience, is part and parcel of any good relationship, especially when it comes to business and when you're asking people to hand over money.
Absolutely agree. I think the pressures of social, probably for any kind of business, small or large, is, you can confirm or deny this, is the kind of pressure to put out content. And I think unless you're putting out the right content, A, you can damage your brand, B, you're probably not going to reach the right people, and it's not the right message either. So the potential is there to reach a lot of people at once, but again, you have to be selective and nurture a relationship. There is the pressure there. I've felt it from brands or agencies or businesses that have used me, and it's quote unquote the churn. It's like, well, I want to do my best work for you, but if you're going to dilute it because you need to get another blog out next week and a week after that, and it's not quality enough, well, nothing's really going to land.
Absolutely. And something that we talk to businesses on a daily basis. I can remember one meeting, and I think I've referred to this before on the podcast, but literally having a conversation with a company turning over some serious money. We're talking in the millions, and me asking them about their social media, having looked and done a bit of research, understanding that it's not working the way they wanted it to. It's not getting picked up the way they wanted it to. So we had this conversation, and I said, well, okay, so, you're paying somebody to do this for you currently. And they're like that. Yeah. I said, okay, great. How well are you doing? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, what was the goal in the first place, and how close are you to achieving that goal? And literally the phone call just went deadly quiet. And literally you could hear that kind of penny drop moment going, holy sh. I'm not going to swear. I'm trying not to swear on the podcast, but these people suddenly realize that, the churn, and for content creators, it can be hard because sometimes, yes, we do need to keep going through a quiet patch or whatever might be happening. But the honest truth is there's businesses out there that are just churning out stuff on social media, in inverted commas, because they think they need to, but they don't realize that it's actually a tool that can be used to achieve goals, whether that be, getting new sign-ups to your mail list, whether that be starting conversations, whether that be getting feedback from an app or a product, whatever it might be, but all of those things can be used. And I think that's the secondary part, which I wanted to pick up on what you said there. Not creating quality content means that it's one and done kind of system. So you create a blog, you push it out, and then you forget all about it. A good blog piece should be being referred to and should be linked back to and should be posted on your social media, not once, but 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 times in the next year, for example, if it's good, valuable content that people will want to read. And that's something that's really important. That's what your point was there. Churning for the sake of churning equals zero results and probably a load of money spent for no reason. Whereas actually creating something that's worthwhile and something that's got a good lifeline and a good lifetime sort of value to people, that means that you can then use that and reuse it in different ways.
In terms of churn, it's hard to create what I suppose many people call thumb stopping content, and that takes a lot of kind of creative effort and ingenuity to make it pop, or whatever you want to call it or do. But it does have to be regular, and it does have to engage. And I don't think there's any but there's no excuse for anyone who is putting content out at any level not to be able to follow it up with even the basics kind of analytical tools. Because kind of getting those data insights, even if it's just kind of performance metrics on your Twitter posts, forget the vanity metrics like your likes and retweets, although obviously that helps reach. you really want to dig down into it, and then it helps you reshape future efforts. And I think a lot of people aren't doing it, even though, like we say, all the tools are there for anyone to create content, measure it, and then adapt it, and then rework their strategy depending on how well it's worked or what they need to do to get people into that funnel.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, we don't really care about the vanity metrics, but knowing and understanding what sort of content your audience actually resonates with, and what sort of content they like, and what sort of content they share more than anyone else or anything else, that's valuable insight. And I'm not saying that all your effort should be directly linked to your previous experience or your previous stats, but it's a great starting point to really get a feel for and understand what it is that you should be focusing on and what it is that you should be creating.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of targeted ads on Facebook, but they do serve its purpose when they're done well. I mean, I'm a sucker for a sale, close sales, stuff like that. You got a nice little carousel, you'll hook me in. But yesterday, the wife and I were looking for a new car, and we're doing some research online. And within 5 minutes of doing those searches on Facebook, we were targeted with car finding app content, and one actually stood out quite well. So I'm going to go back to that website. So when it's done well and it's not intrusive, then it's definitely a good part of your toolkit. So it really is quite obvious who's putting the effort in and who isn't.
I'd agree with that. And I think that's something whereby, especially for small businesses, startups, and new apps and everything else, when something actually stands out to us, and we're probably a really bad example of the audience in reality, the fact that anyone working even slightly within creative ads or anything like the marketing sector, we look at things in a different way. We start analysing and really sort of digging deep and sort of, you can't help it. And it's exactly that. We do it because we're interested in it, and then you can't even analyse it a little bit as to why they're doing this and what were the demographics going to be and why would we go down that route. Wow, that's awful. But the thing is, we're critical in that sense, not necessarily knowing or seeing the results of the campaign means that we can't really dictate whether it's a great idea or a terrible idea. Sometimes we're proven wrong on sort of epic scales, and the worst possible thing actually does the best, or the thing that we thought would be worse actually performs better than others. But the thing that's interesting is, like you said, it's standing out. And this is where, freelancers and this new lifestyle choice of business or work-wise, I don't want to be a corporate drone. I never have. I started my own agency since 2017 now. End of 2016. We've been completely decentralized, so we have no offices. Everybody works from home or coffee shops or wherever they want to. And actually, there's a huge talent pool out there that's available to businesses, big and small. And, whether you go to the higher end of freelancers for copywriting or creatives, for example, or even if you're just looking for some help getting started and you're using platforms like Upwork, Freelancer, and stuff like that, where you can actually find people who have a skill set and that can help you with one particular part of what it is that you're doing. And I think that's a huge opportunity that probably actually not enough businesses take advantage of. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I don't know if it's sticking to, like you say, those traditional models of, you have to be seen to be on site to be productive. I mean, from what I've worked hard at, like I say, on LinkedIn and building those connections and building kind of work rate around it, it's more people who live their life or business online and who know how to navigate it. But definitely, I mean, there's a couple of initiatives, if you want to call them, groups that I've joined, and just because I like their model, Future Strategy Club and the Hoxby Collective in particular. I've got in with those guys. I haven't actually worked with them yet. That's my fault. But their model is basically irrespective of gender, age, ethnicity, disability, etc. They have a pool of talent globally that they can pull together for any size client i.e. an international or global brand, to build a team and to actually work remotely and to get the job done. I mean, bricks and mortar are just, I don't know, it's nice to walk into a nice office and understand if you're a client, you want to get that kind of context of this is where they live, i.e. home. But realistically, if it boils down to the work that gets done, like you say, that can be done anywhere. And there are many freelancer platforms where you can find the right people. You've already got the bottom of the barrel, like Fiverr, which I think every freelancer is probably at least registered on or dabbled with at some point, all the way up to, like I say, newer initiatives like Hoxby.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge opportunity. I think this probably brings me on to an interesting topic, or at least for me it is anyway. I always find this interesting. For small businesses, and I include freelancers, solopreneurs, anything like that, where people are just getting started, I feel that there's a little bit of fear in terms of putting yourself out there. And other people have said the same thing. Some people don't want to be the champion of their own business, or especially when you're a solopreneur, you're a small business, there is only really you when you first start. And you have to kind of become the champion of your business. And I feel like the fear element is what usually stops people. But I'd like your opinion on this, and especially for freelancers as well. If you're doing this and it's all about you, getting yourself out there as much as possible is surely a huge benefit to you and to the business and to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think it would be easy to say that you have to be a certain kind of person or person that have a certain personality to be a freelancer, but the bottom line is you do need a bit of a thick skin, especially if you're a solopreneur or it's just you, like me, or if you're a designer, freelance designer, any other creative that's just working on their own. You have to have a thick skin and a degree of resilience, definitely, because no one else is fighting your corner. So it is trying to tie all those things together, marketing yourself and being in kind of copywriter groups on Facebook as well. You see a lot of people ask the same questions, or they get stuck on, I'm great at marketing other people, but it really sucks trying to write about myself. And it is true. It is difficult, but you can be objective and stand back. Not everyone has that problem, but it is a challenge for a lot of people. So it's trying to wear all the hats at once. And there's fear of rejection. There's definitely fear of failing. And there's fear of being lost as well. Not knowing what to do or what the right thing is. People give up their careers because they haven't succeeded at it, or they just didn't maybe approach it the right way.
I was going to just pick up on the thick skin thing, and I think it's not just true for the business side. It's not just true for selling or marketing yourself or anything else, but I think that's pretty much the key to everything. Because when we talk with businesses, and we'll say things like, for example, videos are a great opportunity. If you're not currently using them, then you're missing out on something that's absolutely huge right now. And people will say to us, no, we've tried video. It didn't work for us. And I'll say, great. Okay, well, how many videos did you create, and what did you do with them, and how did you try? And they'll say, well, we created one video or two videos and they didn't work, so we stopped doing it. And I'll sit there and be thinking to myself, wow, that's basically like the door-to-door salesman saying, I did the first couple of houses and I gave up because this is awful and no one wanted to buy. Of course they didn't. It's the same for sales. It's the same for marketing, but it's also the same whether you're dating, whether you want to become part of a football team or whatever it would be. There's an element of you have to test, you have to try, you have to keep trying, and then eventually you hopefully get what you want to, or what you were hoping to get out of it, or you get something else or feedback as to how you can do it the next time. But I think that's something that's quite strange. And I think, again, I agree with you completely. Sometimes it's hard to talk about ourselves or to write about ourselves. We've just been in the process of redoing all the team bios and stuff like that. So, we're all kind of helping to write each other's so that way, you don't get that element. But I also think that today's lifestyle, and especially with social media and online, there's 100 ways to do it. You're not forced to write a big blog about yourself or have a long website that just talks and drones on about you and your experiences. But you've got live video, with an iPhone in your pocket, or an Android like yourself, Gary. But with a mobile phone in your pocket, a smartphone, you can connect to Facebook. You can live stream in high definition, broadcast quality, and talk about yourself, or talk about what you're doing, or talk about what you're working with at the moment. You can use imagery to showcase where you are, what you're doing, and who you're working with, or what sort of clients you're working with. Portfolio style, don't focus on you and who you are, just focus on the work and how you've done it and how it's helped, and case studies and whatever else. And I think this is why we've got a huge, what I call like the biggest opportunity in the world right now with all these platforms. Yes, there's a lot of people out there, and data privacy and one thing or another they don't like, the big platforms like Facebook, etc. But ultimately, it's the biggest tool right now for any small business, any solopreneur, any freelancer to be able to get themselves out there. And it's completely free of charge. I mean, this is amazing. It's free.
It is true. I do agree. But just dialing it back to personality for a sec, the very nature of social is that ability to kind of communicate with people, get on with people. And people, some people might be just good at their craft and less good at social aspects, and it maybe intimidates them a bit. I mean, if I was 20 years younger and I'd be all over social, and I know there's so much on there now that I'd just be kind of glued to my phone really, and it's just working out what to do and when, and using the time constructively as well, which goes back to kind of having a strategy and not just having, like you say, all the tools at your disposal. But if you're doing it randomly, you're going to get snoozed on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever because you post the shit. Pardon my French.
No, that's fine. We'll make sure we add the explicit one to this episode. Now it means I can swear if you have as well.
It'll be a floodgate. Don't go there, Chris.
No, but I completely agree. And this is the thing where, we always talk about that strategy, and people kind of get stuck in, well, what if the strategy doesn't work? And you say, it doesn't matter. It's a starting point. That's the whole point of it. The strategy document that you write for your business, for your brand, for your social media platforms, it's fluid. It's going to change. It's going to adapt. If it doesn't, Jesus, I mean, can you imagine having the same strategy running for 5 years when social media is rapidly changing every 2 minutes? It'd
be demoralizing if you didn't see results and you, for some insane reason, stuck with it.
Well, so this is something that pains me to say, but way too many businesses are doing that right now.
Yeah.
And it's a massive shame because you fall into the churn, you fall into we have to post something. And therefore you just go from, trying to come up with creative or cool ideas to literally just hammering out 20% off today, 20% off tomorrow, 20% off the next day. And after a while, people like that, I don't really care because I don't really know anything about you. I don't really know who you guys are. I don't know anything about the product, the production, how it's made, what you guys are actually about. And I have no relationship with you.
Yeah, I think it's tough for businesses to maybe know themselves. I mean, they know what they're producing, they know what their products or services are, but actually giving it a voice, i.e. a tone of voice or a visual identity, is as important. So if you haven't got those kind of things nailed at the first hurdle, you're going to fall over. So, if you've got a staff or something else, you can talk the way everyone else does. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you money. It's going to boost productivity. But actually, where's the personality? Where's the brand behind it? And I think that is where any business of any side needs to dig a little deeper now, because like you say, being social at a business level also means giving your business, like I say, a personality that people can connect with. And there are ways to do that.
Yeah, and so we had this conversation with a startup the other day. Was when we did a presentation at WeWork Labs, and the guy literally asked me, how do you find that brand tone, guidelines, that voice and everything else? I said, okay, well, let's take a step back. I said, how many people in the company currently? And he was like, that, me. I've just started. I was like, perfect, done. You are the brand guidelines. You are the brand voice.
Exactly.
Talk the way you would normally talk, because it's going to resonate then. If you start making those touch points with people and then you meet with them afterwards, they're going to feel like it's the same person, that you're representing the company represents you and the people that are going to come after you, sort of thing. And that becomes your tone of voice, your brand guidelines, and you do it how you would do it, what feels naturally, and then there's no effort involved. It's just a case of you telling your story. And that's the joy of social media and online marketing and digital marketing in general. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Pretty much all the mediums are the same, whether you're a huge brand and you spend millions of pounds on a great video campaign idea that then tanks, or whether you're the one-man band who literally records a video in your studio at home or in your shop or in your restaurant or whatever it might be. And literally that ends up going viral because people go, this is awesome. Like, I love this guy. I love how he comes across, one thing or another. And then you take it from there. You know, people often forget that the biggest YouTubers out there, the people getting paid to create content every day and whatever else, they all started by literally sitting at home, chopping together a rough edit video. And if you look at these things, you'll see, you know, the first videos when they talk about them and they go back, they're not very good. Like, let's be honest. But it's not a problem. It's all part of a process. And then they get better. They get more comfortable in front of the camera. The same thing be told for podcasting, even for myself. We've done loads of live videos, interviews, stuff like that in the past. But when I started doing the podcasting, you know, we had a different format. We do more sort of question and answers and stuff like that. You learn from what you're doing and you put it out and you ask a few key people that you trust their opinions and stuff. And you say, what do you think? How do you feel about this? And even I did my own research to go into some of the biggest podcasters that I know and that I love listening to. And I went all the way back to their first ever episodes. And you start listening to them and you go, wow, okay, right. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a journey, not just for me, but it has been for them as well. And the same be told for social media or for your online marketing.
It's funny you should mention that, actually. Last night, I went back and listened to the very first Russell Brand Under the Skin podcast. I've dipped in and out before, just on the nature of whoever the guest is. But I thought, you know what, I actually want to invest a bit of time in this because I'm really enjoying it. And listening to the first episode he did, he's more Russell Brand than he is now. So I think he's found what he's offering, what his interview style, what he wants to say. He's still there's a bigger stand-up element in that first episode, and kind of comedy element that kind of weans its way out. So he's finding himself in that very first episode, and it feels a bit raw and unpolished. But you know, it's still him. You still know what he's talking about. But it's that kind of gradual transition and journey, getting better.
Yeah, and I think that's true for anything we do. You know, I'm sure you've met freelancers or small business owners and even bigger business owners, but what somebody will say to you, you know, I can't write, I can't do videos, I can't talk, I can't be interviewed or whatever it is. And invariably, you know, most people can't do all these things from day one. So, you know, accepting the fact that your first blog you write probably isn't going to become a best-selling movie or a book or anything else, and that's fine. But the actual process of starting, thinking of ideas, what you want to talk about, how you want to present your business, whatever it might be, you slowly start building up these habits and you start doing it. And I think that's true for pretty much everything we do in life, but we seem to forget it online. We think just posting anything or everything is going to suddenly make a difference.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've done a lot of kind of bread and butter web copy refreshes, and they're engaging for me because I'm fresh to it. But 9 times out of 10, it's, well, we've had the website for X amount of years. We haven't done anything to it. And the conversation I always have is, that's fine. I'll refresh it, put a bit of life back into it, you know, get a good brief off you, and then we'll work to whatever outcomes you want. But going beyond that, and then it's almost like the metaphorical eyes glaze over when I start talking about, you know, your kind of outbound marketing and what's the new website going to be hosting and what's going to be pumped out from there, what's the continuation, and, you know, not just I can do all that for you or with you, but I think a lot of SMEs and businesses still see a website as the shop window, but you don't want it to be stuck in amber where the shop window doesn't change. You need to keep changing the stock, the look, the feel, basically.
Absolutely. And so I use the shop front analogy quite a lot. And the only thing I change slightly about that is I always say, when you first start your website, your shop window is down a tiny little alleyway, hidden away past, you know, a dark forest and whatever else. And it's going to take a while to get people there. But as you start to build and as your brand builds and as you have an audience and you have a community and everything else that goes around it, then you end up, like you just said, you have this beautiful big shop window on Oxford Street. And if we've learned anything from shops and from anything that we see every day we go out, it's constantly being refreshed. And I think the page that I found the most obvious that we should keep up to date, and it's actually the one that 95% of companies really don't, is actually about us.
Yeah, definitely.
Who are you? Because when you wrote it 5 years ago, you're not the same as you are today. Like it's impossible. Things change, things develop, your product changes, your niche changes, whatever it might be. But this whole thing develops, and we kind of forget about it. We think that it's kind of one and done. Built my website. Now I just sit back and wait for people to start buying or to send me loads of emails requesting my services and my work. And you have to try and kind of remind people that's not the way it works. And there is no magic button to turn on the floodgates.
No, to use a kind of B2B term, or it's building an ecosystem, a web system.
We haven't had ecosystem said on this podcast for ages, I don't think.
I say it sincerely for its meaning, but for the word itself, I'd just choose something a bit simpler. But I get what they say. Basically, your website and all your marketing efforts on social, above line, below line, all need to join up. And that's what I understand by ecosystem, is everything fitting together, and including the people in your business as well. If you're a bigger business, 0 to 50 or 50 more, your employees can be brand advocates. So it's not just down to your marketing push. That's the point of social, is that your employees, if they're living your brand's dream, then they can be part of your output as well, quite easily, in fact.
Something that we tell businesses again and again when we work with them, if your team doesn't buy into what we're doing and to what we're pushing out there, why would anybody else? And it's amazing to see how many people are, employed to a company, for example. They're on LinkedIn, they're sharing content, they're pushing stuff out, they're involved in conversations, and yet literally some companies that we've worked with, the team members don't even follow their own company, like who they're working for, to keep up to date with what's going on, or they don't share out that content. And when you're a smaller business, it's even more important. With only a few employees, you are the advocates, you are the people who are there. And for solopreneurs, obviously the same thing again. Use your own personal networks, use your own personal profiles to push the company agenda, the company focus, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, number one. And two, if you're not willing to promote yourself, why should anybody else?
Yeah. Going right back to the beginning, when we introduced each other, I can tell that what you guys are doing is exactly that. And having met you in real life as well, met the whole team, is that you're doing it really well, actually. And I think the word you used was decentralized, and that's an even bigger kind of plus to take to people and to tell people. Say, look, we're doing it. This is how we're doing it. People are engaging with us, and these are the routes to it that would work for you.
And again, it's one of the biggest things that we try and get across to everyone. If you're going to talk the talk, you should walk the walk. So,
I definitely think you and the guys are doing that, Chris.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure the guys will be happy to hear that as well. But it is the idea, even for whether you're a freelancer, whether you're a solopreneur, whatever it might be, but especially if you're in the creative or the marketing kind of aspects or careers, telling somebody else that they should blog 3 times a week because it's good for SEO, because it's good for them, because it's good for your audience, because it's good for whatever reason. And then literally having not updated your own website, for example, for a year.
Oh, guilty.
Yeah. Well, to be fair though, again, I think from an agency point of view, it's even more foul play kind of thing, because of the fact that it's literally your bread and butter. That's what you're charging other people for. That's what you honestly believe is the game and the way that it should be played, and content. Everyone always talks about this as content is king. We believe it's great content is king, because that's a really important aspect. It's got to be good. It's got to be of value to somebody out there. And again, practice what you preach. There's no point in sitting there saying, yep, I know exactly what we should do for you. And then actually from your own point of view, you go, yeah, I'm not going to bother doing any of those things. And it's something that I think freelancers can struggle with from what we've had these conversations from. And I think it's mainly because it's almost daunting, if that makes sense, to kind of look at this huge spectrum of all the things that you should necessarily be doing. And then actually in reality, you know, the honest truth is if you were just active as part of a community like you are, Gary, with the 1 Minute Briefs guys again. That's another invoice to Nick, by the way. Every time I mention it now, I'm gonna start tallying it up. But it's true though, because again, it does give you access to this community. You are there and you do show up on a regular basis. You do know the other people. You do get involved in the networking events that go around it. And all of that, even in its own right, is a huge step towards getting yourself out there, to getting known, to having a good portfolio when people ask you for it. And when you connect with people, you can say to them, you know, this is the sort of stuff that I do. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the referrals I've had through networking at different events, because I go out quite regularly, is you know, going cold, warm, hot, but also just kind of meeting people, having conversations. And there's instances where you may be kind of casually pitching yourself, but then it turns out that you meet someone else and then you refer them to someone else down the line. So it's going beyond your own kind of products and services. And the more you network, the more people you have in your network that can help you when the time comes. So whether it's creating awesome video or copywriting or design or something, you know, I could package up. I could package up anything with any creative, just because of the network I've built, like I say, on LinkedIn and Twitter, etc., and meeting people in real life. So I think it's right. You know, you have to market yourself, and that's the daunting bit. But also networking, the results of getting out and meeting people is really simply like going back to kind of bartering ages. Is helping each other, and it's it can be a real boost as well.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the big things I'd say about that is, you know, if you never refer anybody else, then don't expect a huge amount of people to refer people to you all the time.
Exactly.
It's got to be a two-way street. And the more people know within your network that that's what you do when you can't deal with something, when it's not your speciality, and you're bringing these other people in, one, your client respects you more. So we're the first to say that's not what we do. That's not what we specialize in. However, we can bring somebody in that can help you with that. Automatically gives you a level of trust stroke authority within your domain. And the fact that you're actually honest enough to say, no, we can't do that, or no, it's not what we specialize in. It's not going to come out as well as if we brought in, say, a professional videographer or a professional studio or whatever it might be that we can do then to create something that's going to be so much better. And I think that's probably the really important thing as well, you know, not to be afraid because you just want some cash to come in. And I say this for businesses as well as for freelancers. It can be a struggle. You know, you do need to pay the bills at the end of every month. But if you start jumping into things for the sake of just that, I just need to get something in to pay the bills, the chances of getting more referrals after that and people talking about you in a very positive way, if you've done something that's, I don't want to say half-assed, but, you know, not to the best of your possible ability because it's not actually your speciality, it's actually going to negatively impact the business and what you're trying to do in the long term.
Yeah, that impact will it will go further than probably some kind of positive actions. You know, that resonance if something goes wrong, it's the one time out of 100 times you get something wrong, whatever it is, and that's what people remember, unfortunately. So yeah, it's good to try and massage those situations so it works the best way for you. And if that means putting your hand up and saying you can't do it and referring to someone else, you'll probably feel relieved and you're giving someone else a shot at it as well. Absolutely.
Gary, listen, this has been awesome. Where can people find you online?
Very easy. Twitter, it's Gary Does Copy. On LinkedIn, it's I think it's Gary Lewis 1973. You'll see a little kind of cartoony filtered avatar of me on LinkedIn, but you'll see Gary Does Copy on there as well. And dip into my profile, and if you want to message me without spamming me, go ahead. I'm all ears.
That's the key thing there. If you want to message, please feel free to message any of our guests. All of them have said this. Just don't pitch them on round number one of messages. Start a conversation. I think all of my guests would appreciate that.
Definitely. And I always take it one step further. If they're in London or I can get to them, then I not push, but I'd like to meet for a coffee face to face. Because I send a briefing doc out and that's fine. And sometimes, I never meet my clients. But in all honesty, I find I get a lot more out of it and can dig a bit deeper into whatever's needed by doing it old school, face to face, meeting a person.
Love it. Going old school, Gary. Listen, Gary, thank you very much. We'll drop your links into the show notes as well. So if you do want to get in touch with Gary or you want to reach out and ask him any questions or try and flog him something on your first message on LinkedIn, as I'm sure somebody will, then you can find everything on the website. Gary, thank you so much again. And I look forward to catching up soon.
Brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure, Chris. Hi to the team and see you online.
The All About Digital Marketing podcast is brought to you by Social Inc., a distributed digital marketing agency specialized in delivering results through online campaigns. Whether it's content marketing, social media marketing, online advertising, or web design, we've got you covered, from strategy through to delivery. If you're struggling with your digital marketing, get in touch today by simply visiting www.socialinc.co.